All right. Doing a quick audio check on things, making sure the people on Teams meetings, I think we've already been talking, so Teams I think is good. I'm going to double check the YouTube or LinkedIn feeds. If you are joining us on either YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitch, or Facebook, I think that's the other one we have going on here as well. Feel free to throw a comment in there and let me know if you have good audio. Giving this a try for the first time here, so we'll see how these other streaming platforms go. Awesome. No confirmation yet, but I'm just going to wing it. We're going to go. Awesome. Well, thank you all very much for attending this. This is going to be some best practices in building cool stuff in Charticulator. I've been a very vocal fan of the Charticulator platform, and we're going to kind of talk through that. But before we do that, we'll just jump quickly into my other slide here, hopefully. Resume slideshow. Let's do that. There we go. This is me. So hello, my name is Mike Carlo. I'm a Microsoft MVP in the data platform area. I have a Twitter handle that I use as my company, PowerBI.tips. I actually consult professionally as well, so I'm also a full-time consultant. I own my own business, everything around Power BI. So I've made the full jump. I've left the corporate life and said Power BI is the thing that I want to do and be an expert in it. So all I do is Power BI, Microsoft Modern Data Platform Engineering, the whole 9 yards. So if you want to get a hold of me, I'm on Twitter. I'll monitor those channels as well. Another thing I want to bring up that's been recent is the Explicit Measures podcast. And for those of you who are deep fans of Power BI, you will understand what an implicit measure and an explicit measure is by the name of those measures. So kind of a fun little play on words there. Felt it was a fun little podcast talking about explicit measures and stuff like that. It's just a cool open forum. And all we do there is kind of chit chat and talk about hanging out as a team of MVPs. Myself, Tommy Puglia, and Seth Bauer are all Microsoft MVPs, and we just talk about Power BI, things that we're learning, things that we're working on and building. So just a fun little area as well. You can find us on all your major streaming platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and also on YouTube if you want to watch the live video of those streams as well. I'm also on LinkedIn, so you want to catch me on LinkedIn down below. You can catch me down there as well. And all right, moving on along here. So just a little bit of background around myself. I am my career kind of started out as a mechanical engineer, and I would consider myself that business person, from the business side of things. I'm very much an individual who just loves the Excel side of things. That's kind of how I got into things. And so my whole entry into Power BI was really around Excel and using Power Query to the nth degree. I really loved it. I fell in love with that tool. I thought this was amazing. And then very soon after, it turned into moving me into, hold on, there's a lot of other noise on here. Let's see if I can, who's running the meeting? If I can get you to mute other participants, that'd be helpful. Maybe that's Sean. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it. All right, anyways, so my background is heavily in the mechanical engineering space, but I then quickly moved into an analytics team where I just spent a ton more time doing analytical things, building analytical features and stuff. Oh, there's still a lot of noise on the channel here. Who's not muted? If you're on the phone call, please mute yourself if you're not talking. Would appreciate that. Awesome. Thank you very much. And then moving on from there, doing a bunch of analytical things, getting very heavy into the weeds, did all the Excel macros, writing VBAs in Excel, and then really dove into the early versions of Power BI. And this is where Power BI Tips kind of came from, the website that I created. Lots of tips and tricks about how to use Power BI came from there. It was just me and exploring how to learn things. I went on to get my MBA and then further on to get a master's in data science, got a half a master's in data science. So I didn't finish the classes, but I got enough out of it to feel like I can play in that arena pretty well. And with that, let's jump into some demo stuff. So that's all I have really for intro things. We're going to get right into Charticulator. So let me get out of here. That's what we're all here for. So let me pull up my Power BI. So let me just give you an overview of just kind of what's happening in this Charticulator arena. Let me make sure I have Zoom it on here as well, just to make sure we've got that enabled. Yep. Okay. Awesome. So everyone's very familiar with the visualizations that come with Power BI. So there's a standard set of visualizations up here. These are all the things that are built into the program. These are ones you can kind of click them, you drag them on the canvas, and very easily you can just add data to a visual. So we'll do a quick one here, drop a table, and we have a table in here, and I'm going to make this page a little bit larger so it'll be easier for everyone to see. So let me just change that briefly here. Make the screen size, page size larger, and we'll just go something with like a 720 again. We'll just make it a square. And then we'll just zoom it by going to fit to width. All right, excellent, nice and big. All right, so easily stuff. There, you get a bunch of these field wells, and particularly this is a very not fun one. Let's do a bar chart here instead. Then in here we bring dimensions, we put the dimensions on the axis, and then we can bring some sort of values column, and you can quickly make a bar chart. You basically, the formatting of all of that charting is done for you. It's a pre-built visual essentially, and all you're able to do is add a couple little details and do a lot of styling on top of it. But all the features that are exposed, they're only available in this little paint roller. So you have data, but you're limited by what Microsoft has developed for you in this field well. If the feature doesn't exist here, you can't really use it. So that's kind of the nature of what the built-in visuals are doing. So what I want to extend this to is I'm going to start talking about what is Charticulator and what does that do. So I'm going to bring up a web page here just briefly to make sure I've got everyone checking it out. This is actually a Microsoft research project. Charticulator.com is the website. And on this website, they have a lot of examples of how you build things. You'll see that this user interface looks very similar to what we're going to see in Power BI Desktop. So this is the user interface. And in this arena, you're going to kind of have to change your mindset of how you build visuals. There really is no field well. You take data and you bind data to stylized properties. And so there's a bunch of framework items that we're going to talk about that'll get your framework around how to use Charticulator. There's a whole bunch of really interesting designs on this page. You can also go through their getting started, which is okay. It's a little hard to read and get through, but a lot of the terminology that I'm going to use will come off of the user interface components here and pretty much lean on the documentation they've already produced for you. So this is the project Charticulator. What the recent development has been is that Charticulator is now on the App Store. It's an app source, and you can go download it and put it into your Power BI report files now. So you would do that by going get more visuals, hopefully. Oh, there it goes. And then from the get more visuals area, you can go search for Charticulator. Charticulator. The wonderful name. And then you hit add, and I think I've already got it in here, so it might just, yeah, it just acknowledges, hey, it's already there. Would you like to update it? Sure, why not? Hopefully it won't break anything. Imported custom visual. Okay. So what this does now is it actually drops the custom visual. You'll see there's a dotted line here, and that little dotted line right there at the very top of this means this is in an area where these are the custom visuals. These are the ones that you're importing that are not part of the standard library. A new trick that people are seeing, or you can add here, is you can right-click on that, and you can pin this visual into the visualization pane, which means every new report you start will automatically have this visual added into it. We're not going to do that for now. I just wanted to point that out. So when we put Charticulator on the page, it looks like a normal visual, but there's a lot more details to it. It's not a standard picture like they have before. So this is actually the documentation. I'm going to remove this other visual, and there's some documentation on this. There is a lot of learn more. There's, how to get started, step 1, step 2, step 3. We're going to go through that in this video. But ultimately what's going to happen here is you have a blank canvas. This is a framework to help you build fully custom visuals. And so if you think about development of visuals in general, right, we have these in-the-box standard visuals from Microsoft, and then we also have full custom development, right? You can build your own custom visual with whatever software program, like not with other software, but it's all D3.js. There's a framework. Microsoft has built a library for you to consume. You can build R packages inside these custom libraries. So there's a lot of extensibility for building your own custom visuals, but you have to write code at that point. This is one of the closest highly customizable visuals without writing a ton of code. All right. So that being said, this is on the easier side of the spectrum. I believe someone on the chat before was talking about another visual called Project Deneb, D-E-N-E-B. That is more code than this one, but less code than writing a full custom visual from scratch. So this is sitting on, I would call it, on the easier side of building custom visuals. First things first, we have to add some data to this. So I'm going to actually go into a couple examples here that I have on a different page just to frame this out a little bit. On my example number 1, you'll see that there are 2 visuals here. The left is a Charticulator visual, and the right is a standard visual. So how I like to typically build something is I typically like to start with a table. So we're going to go down to this product table, and we're going to make this new table again. I like to think this through as if it was a table because this helps me build out the visual inside Charticulator, and I can see the data that I'm going to get inside the framework. So here I have a column called product and another column called sales price. And that's coming out of my financials table that you'll see over here. So I'm going to do the same thing. We're going to go to our brand new page. I'm going to go grab a table now. So I'm going to grab the table visual in the visualizations pane. And then I'm going to go grab the product column and drop it on there. And then I believe I said sales price, I believe is the one I was using. So here's my sales price by product. Okay, this is my starting point. And the interesting note here is when we're talking Charticulator, the Charticulator program has aggregations inside of it. So only the data that I see here, Amarillo, Montana, all these dimensions, I'll call these the dimension side of things, is producing a single number. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 items. This table will tell me exactly what data I'm going to see inside the Charticulator app. Okay, so I'm going to now, actually, I'm going to get rid of this visual because I don't really want to have it here right now. I'll remove this. I'm going to copy the table, so Control-C, Control-V on the table, and then I'm going to change this visual from a table to Charticulator. And you'll see now the column headers, data is added, product has been added to the data, and the links have been added as sales price. I don't want to do links at this point. That's a little bit more of an advanced feature. So we're going to just stick with just adding everything to the data. So you'll just add your data columns here. And what this will do is this will produce, even though I can't see the data, this is producing the same amount of data that I see here on the table on the left-hand side. So now we're going to go in, we're going to actually edit this visual. And to do that, you click on the ellipsis, which is these 3 little dots on the upper right-hand corner of the visual. So I'll click the ellipsis, and then we're going to click the first item in the list called Edit. That's what we're going to hit. Oops, went too far out of that. Edit that visual. So now this is going to bring up a full-size visual. It's going to maximize it for the entire screen. And now that we're in here, it's going to highlight the button called Create Chart. I'm not going to use the import templates because that's just not very helpful for us at this point, but I'm going to start brand new from Create a Chart. We're going to click Create Chart. Now I'm going to take a moment here. This is going to take a little bit of a run up to get us into actually building visuals now, but I want to just pause here for a moment and just kind of show you the UI and the interface here. And I'm going to give you a couple tips and tricks right out of the gate on how to use the program. So let's just navigate this UI. First things first, you'll notice we have the part of Power BI Desktop, which is over here, which are visualizations and fields. This area is product, sales price, and this is all out of the desktop. This is Power BI Desktop. Everything here to the left-hand side, this side, is actually Charticulator. So what I like to do is I like to grab all the data fields that I need and put them in the data area here, and then I minimize these sections. So I get rid of the fields area, I'll minimize it, and visualizations. I want the maximum amount of space I can for building the report. I also don't need any stylizing options up here. So at the top of the ribbon, this stuff is all from Power BI Desktop. I don't need this right now. So to get more space or more surface area for my report, I'm also going to minimize this ribbon. To do that, I go all the way over to the right-hand side, and there's a little tiny arrow here in the far left-hand corner that you can click that will make the top ribbon shorter. So I'll click that, and boom, it gets smaller. So now I've maximized my canvas area for building visuals. All right, let's talk about what all these things mean. On the visual, if I put my cursor here near the edge here, you'll see there's a blue line. This is the frame, the outer rim of the visual. Anything that falls outside of that blue line will not display on the visual. So it'll go off the page or it'll be hidden from view. Then you'll see here, it's a little bit harder to note here on the video, so I'll try and zoom in as best I can. There's these grid lines. One that is oops, wrong eye, one that is here and one that is here. So those two grid lines, these are called guides, and these are very important. The guides decide where things adjust and where things are snapping to. So as we build visual style plot segments onto the page, these guides are super pivotal into telling you what is linking, what is, we'll call it, anchored to a corner or a page. So what I mean by this, on this page, there's this plot area, and the plot segment here is listed under this chart layers. These are the individual elements on your visual. These are the layers or elements. If you can think of like pieces of paper, you could represent each layer as a sheet of paper that you could kind of see through to a deeper layer. If you use like Adobe Illustrator or some kind of online graphical program like GIMP, these are programs that have very clear concepts around layering different elements on a page. And so this is a very kind of common concept. So you'll see that I have a plot segment here, and you'll notice the plot segment is this blue area. This is plotting data onto an area. And the first thing I'll note here is if I grab the corner here and I can click it and drag it into the middle of the page, you'll see that we have two colored dots, a green one, which means there's a reference point. It's anchored. It has definition. We have another one here that's white. It is not anchored. There is no definition. So when you're building charts, it is very important that you make sure you set the anchors so that they have green colored dots. That means the position is established inside the chart and it has an anchored position. It knows where to be. So what I mean by this is if I grab this other corner of this plot area and drag it further up here, and you'll notice right here, the colors are changing to orange because I'm dragging that corner and aligning it or anchoring it on the two lines. When I let go with my cursor, it'll then snap it on there, and that little dot went from white to green. That means it's now anchored in that position. So that's kind of what's happening here on the anchors portion. We've talked about the guides, the edges here, and we can also adjust that. So if I go down here to the chart area, so I'm going to click the word chart in the layers, and then I can adjust the size or the dimensions of this. So if this chart's too wide or too narrow, I can adjust this. So I can say, let's not make it 600 by 400. Let's make it a square 400 pixels by 400 pixels, and now I've made a square visual. So you can adjust the size or the dimensions of that element. These are the margins, and the margins define the area between the guide and the edge of the visual. That's a margin. And you have top, bottom, left, and right. So I can adjust these by saying 20 or 10 pixels, and when I hit tab, all those pixels will adjust, and you'll see now my margins, or the margin around the outside edge, is now smaller. Okay, that's how you adjust those guides there. Okay, let's talk about these three panes on the right-hand side here. So let's start over here with the glyph. You can think of a glyph as a collection of shapes. It's multiple shapes that are bound to a single data point. There's one data point that defines some information about a glyph. So the glyph could be a circle and a triangle and some text and a number. You can have all these different visual things that are inside one glyph. But one glyph will represent one data point. When we were talking earlier, we had that table, and I'll show you the table again. If I click the ellipsis up here on the fields doggone it, did it again. Click the ellipsis, you can see the data we're getting. So this is the data we have that's coming into Charticulator. I have the product column like we had in the table, and I have a sales price, and all those numbers are there. So for each data point, the glyph can represent anything around the Amarillo data point or the Montana data point. So if I have multiple shapes, those multiple shapes can do different things, but they always relate to a single row of data. I want to make that very clear because that's something that gets people tripped up when they start building this for the first time. Okay, we're good here. Let's talk about, we've talked about the glyph. I'll actually point out a couple other things here too. The glyph you can have multiple glyphs. So this is where things get really kind of cool, is you can have multiple graphs on the same report with different types of glyphs. This is where your head will start exploding because you're like, wow, there's so much stuff you can do here. That's so true. And then on the glyph, you'll see that there is a plus minus and a zoom in or zoom out. So show me the full dimensions of what the glyph is doing. The last part I'll note here too is each glyph is bounded with the same guides as what we saw on the page. So these dotted lines are super critical for when we're building visuals, because those are the anchored points. Those are defining physical locations of what the glyph is going to do. And you'll see this more as we build more visuals here. Next is the layers area. The layers area this is where you stack up multiple glyphs. So if you have many glyphs here, there will be multiple items under the glyphs. There'll be glyph 1, glyph 2, glyph 3. And then you'll also see under the chart area, if there are multiple plot segments, you can have multiple plotting segments. So if you want to do a bar chart in the top left and a line chart in the upper right, you can do that. You can actually have two chart styles merged together in the same report or same visual, essentially. Then lastly here is the attributes. And the attributes really, whatever you select, whatever you pick, has a series of properties, whether it's a shape or the plot segment or a glyph. Every single thing on this list has some sort of attributes or properties. And these are just where you adjust them. So that's kind of the definition of these squares here on the right-hand side. And I want to just double check. Okay. I'll just kind of pause here for a minute. If you guys are asking, I'm kind of trying to monitor multiple different chat window area things. I'm looking to see if there's any comments. If you have comments, feel free to type them in the chat windows. I will be happy to answer them. But I don't see, like, of the 3 or 4 chat windows I have open, it doesn't look like we have any questions, so I'll keep going. Okay, we're good. All right, excellent. So let's move on. Let's move on from the glyph area, and we're going to go across the top bar here. Now, some of these will make more sense as we use them, but I'm going to try to describe them as best I can in kind of high-level form right now. First things first is we've got the links area. So the links is taking multiple data points and linking them together with a line or an area bar that goes between them. So this is how you would make a line chart, right? So if you want multiple data points and you want to draw a line between the data points, that's where the links would come into place. Then you have the next icon, which is a legend. So if you have data points and you want to add a legend by color or something like that, that's what this would do. Then we have this whole section called guides. And you'll note here there's a little drop-down menu on this. So guides are additional elements you can use on the page that help you define where the visuals will go. And I'm going to put a guide on the page here real quick. The ones that I use primarily are these two in the middle, the horizontal and the vertical guides. These are ones that I use almost all the time. I very rarely use the single horizontal and the single vertical guide. And I don't make very many polar plots, which would be the bottom one here. This is a polar guide. I don't really use these very much. So that's just something I don't do often, but they're there if you want to use them. All right. Then we have these things called plot segments. You only have 2 options. So in plot segments, you have a 2-dimensional plot, meaning an X and a Y axis. So you can do graphic on the X or up and down on the Y. And then you have a linear or a single line plot segment. So that's this bottom one. And it's basically along a line, there are data points on that line. So whatever's on that line, something will show up. So that is a linear plot segment, just like a 1 dimension, has only the X direction. Then there's another thing here called scaffolds. These I don't use too much. These are really around designing the type of chart style you have. So you could stack things on the X-axis, or you can stack things on the Y-axis, or you could make a polar plot, and that's the round circular thing where you could do polar plots. And a pen will basically let you draw with on the page a plot segment where the X-axis would go. So if you imagine you took your X-axis and it was a noodle, and you could just wiggle it all over the page, that's essentially what it would be doing. It would allow you to draw a very dynamic axis that you needed there. I don't ever use it. Doesn't seem to be much valuable unless you're doing like a fun, artistic kind of visual. Next is the marks area. So these marks are shapes and things that you can use inside your glyph or on the page or the report, let's call it the visual canvas, I guess. So if I click these marks, I have a rectangle, a circle, which is basically an ellipse. If it's equal dimension in X and Y, then it's a circle. If not, then it's an ellipse. And then you have a triangle shape. So these are your different marks that you have. You also have a shape. So these are symbols like a circle, triangle, square, star, I think is what they have there now. And then you have another one for a line. This is just drawing a line somewhere on the page. This is for text, and you can do text two different ways. I can have a text anchor, or I can have a text box. So this is like a box that defines text, and you can have a single string of text, which would be the A on the top part. So that's just a string of text. And then lastly, you have, oops, I didn't mean to do that. Stop it. You have an image. So the same way you have text, you have an image with a single anchor point, and you have an image inside a box. So that would be the image is rendered inside a box. If you're publishing these, I think, I'm not exactly sure how I don't use images very often. I think when you add an image, it makes you upload some sort of graphic or PNG or JPEG into this, which then allows you to leverage that. I don't think you have to have like a URL that's accessible to images. I'd have to check on that later. And then lastly, you have a data axis. I use this all the time. A data axis basically defines like it's like drawing a ruler out on the page or the canvas somewhere, and you're able to put data points to that ruler, which defines certain things that you need. Okay, I think I've reviewed all the details. Let's build something simple based on our data, and then we'll see how this works. So we've done a lot of explanation. Let's click the ellipsis here. Here's my table again. We're going to build a bar chart around this information. First things first, we're going to grab a mark, and I'm going to just grab it and drag it into the glyph area. And I'm going to explain what this is doing. So we talked earlier about there's 6 different data elements. So this is a mark that I've added to a 2-dimensional plot segment. The plot segment is over here. And then for each data point, for each row of data, a single glyph has been presented. And there's no other data binding. So I've only made the bar show up for each data row. And I'm actually going to make this bar chart a little bit wider. So I'm going to bring it down here. I'm going to readjust this so it's big. Okay, now we can see it. First things first, let's adjust the height of the bars by something. So I'm going to go over here to the glyph. And a neat thing about this, which I wish desktop would do, actually it lets you pop these out. So I'm going to click the little pin. And I was clicking the little pinning item here. And that unpins it from that taskbar. And so now I can make this nice and big and work on my visual, or my bar here. So this bar, if I click on this, you'll notice that this bar, or the mark that I add, the rectangle, has 2 properties. I can adjust its width and its height. I can also change the shape type. I can also change its color, so the fill. I can change the stroke, so a shape has a perimeter. The perimeter is the stroke definition. I can change its opacity, and then I can change whether or not it's visible or not based on some data. And then there's some interactivity. So this is stuff that comes out of the chart, and then I can interact with this bar using a tooltip, a context menu, or selecting it. These are options I can turn on or off inside the context of the Charticulator that will then interact with Power BI Desktop. So now that we have this, I'm going to grab the sale price, and you'll see when I grab this, there's like other options. I can take the sale price, and so this is a data binding. I'm going to bind the data of the sale price column into something on the page. And so I'm going to take sales price and grab it to the height, and you'll see my bar automatically adjusts. So the height of the bar is now defined by, and this is where it gets a little bit tricky, and I want to point this out. This is why I made a note on this earlier. It's saying the average of sales price. Now, Charticulator aggregates things. So this is where we start talking about the grain of your data. Because I have only 2 columns in my data set, the grain of my data is only at the product level. If I needed multiple products to show up in this list, I would have to add another column in here, and then I could have a deeper grain. So the reason it's doing this is because Charticulator is always trying to do some sort of aggregation. In this case, since I only have 1 product to 1 number, even though it's doing an average on that data point, it's still just going to show me 12,000. So for Montana, it's still 10,890, even though it says it's doing average. So just be aware of that. It's trying to do those things. And if you get weird data points, there's likely some sort of aggregation happening intravisual or inside the visual that you're not aware of. Okay. Excellent. We've got this going here. So next thing here we're going to do is we're going to grab the, let's see, what should we do next? We'll pin this back in. And so now I want to show you, here's the chart. So now we have chart types where we have all the different bars. And so we don't really know what product is the bar. So let's add some labels. So what I can do now is I can bring the product column down to the x-axis of my chart. And when I do that, you see that it resorted things, but now I have all the names of the different data elements on the bottom of the x-axis. And because I've now pushed those off the edge of the page, I'm going to go back into the chart area, and I'm going to change the bottom border to be like 40. So I'm going to pull the bottom edge up. And you'll see once I do that, I can now see all the different names across the bottom. Kind of cool. Next thing we're going to do is maybe we want to add a color per bar. So we're going to go back, we're going to select the shape, and then I'm going to grab the product column and drop it on the fill. So now I have different color palettes. If we want to customize that further, here are the default color palettes. These are pulling from the Power BI report that's defining them for me, but I can have any n number of additional options in there as well. So if I click on this and then I go to this one, I can then pick any other color palette or pattern or whatever else I want to put in here. So I can click on any other kind of color shading pattern that I think would work, and it'll give you that. It'll actually do custom, so you can define the shading color that you want. So if I nix out a couple colors here, that's a new color palette that I've just made kind of on the fly. So there's kind of a really cool way of being able to adjust colors, a lot more flexibility here, what you can do inside Charticulator than you can everywhere else. So I'm going to go back to product here just because it's easier and it'll make more sense. So I'm going to rename this scale. We're going to call this product colors, so we can see that later on. It'll make it a little clearer. This is my, okay, so we've got a chart here, but this is, okay, fine, I can build a bar chart, but like, why is this cool? What makes this different than what I'm doing in, Power BI Desktop? Well, here's where the cool part comes in. I have the ability of adding anything else I want on the glyph. So once I have this framework started, I can add whatever else I want on here. So I'm going to grab a text box. I'm going to put it here on the bars, and you'll now notice I have a text box on the middle of each bar. So again, with my little green anchor here, I can see that I have a text field, and I can move this around. I can adjust it, and it updates it on all the glyphs, each one individually. I can rotate it, which is something I can't do in desktop. And now I can snap it to the middle. So I can make text on the middle of each bar, and what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take this little green dot, and I'm going to realign where the text goes. So I'm going to pop this out again so I can make this big. Let's make this large again. Grab the corner, make it big, zoom it in. Okay, so I'm going to take the green dot of the text, and this is the anchor point. I'm going to take the green dot, I'm going to align it to the bottom of the bar, and then I'm going to take the text field and drop it right next to it. And I'm just going to leave it as text. And now I'm going to add the product name to the text here. And I don't like it being white, so instead I will change the color to, I don't like the color being black. I'm going to change it to white. So now I have the name of the bar inside the bar, and I'm going to add even more to this. So I'm going to add another text box to this at the top edge. And I'm going to also rotate the text again. So I'm going to use the rotation button here to rotate it. And now I have the text at the other end of the bar. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to also change it back to color of white. And for this one, I'm going to make it align to the left side. So this has a left and right alignment. So that means as the text grows in size, the text will anchor itself on the right side and grow longer to the left. And you can see here the anchor is on the left-hand side. So if I change that, you see it flips sides. So I can define where the anchor is, center it, or left size, or whatever you want to do. So this was looking good. I've got 2 data points here, but now I'm going to add the sale price now to the text box. So now I've got the sales price, and I'm going to open this one up. So I'm going to open the attributes up here larger as well, pin this back in. We're going to open the attributes here now. And in here, you'll notice we can change some formatting. So at the end here, we have a format. So I'm going to go 0F on the formatting of that. And I believe I can do dollars, pound, I think. Nope, doesn't like dollars. I can add the dollar sign in there, and then there's dollars. And there's another one. I forgot how to do the commas. If I just add a comma, I think. Yeah, there we go. So the formatting of this, and this is following a standard D3.js formatting syntax. So I add the dollar sign on the front to make it dollars. I add a comma, so it uses commas inside the text. the .00f is saying round to the nearest the float on the data point is round to the nearest zero decimal places. So that's what that's saying. So now we're done with that. We can pin that back in, and boom. Now we've got a much cooler bar chart, and so much so that I don't think I need the x-axis anymore because I have the labels for each of the data points. So now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go back to the plot segment, and I will go to, let me minimize this one here. I'm going to make this small by clicking the little arrow here. I'm going to go down to the display x-axis on, where did it go? Plot segment. Looking for my setting. Chart, plot segment. Here it is. Okay. X-axis categorical. Visible, off. So the reason I'm turning the visible off is that way it stays in aligned order the way I want it to, but it gives me the definition of like the columns are aligned. So I'm going to leave it there, but I'm just going to turn it off so it's not visible. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my chart area, and I'm going to make my margins back down to 10. And boom. So this is now custom. So we can't do this in desktop. We've extended the experience of building visuals to now something that's much more custom. I'm going to hit save here on the left-hand side. This is very important that you hit save. And when we hit save, it will save the visual, and then I'll go back to report, and then, oh, it's all scrunched up. I'll make it bigger here. There we go. So now the visual's bigger, and then we've got my nice new visual. So a lot more effort to make a simple bar chart, but I've got a lot more customization around how this chart works compared to the other one. For comparison, let's just do a quick other bar chart. I'm going to go to the visualizations area. I'm going to copy my table, Control-C, Control-V, and then I'm going to change it to a bar chart. I'll make this big. And this is all I can do with a standard bar chart. I can't change it. I can't add anything else to it. It has to stay in this format. I can't put text on. I mean, I can put labels on top of it, but I can't make labels angled. I can't take the text and put it on top of the bar. So if I wanted to mirror this as closely as I could add, let's rainbow chart it here by adding a little product column to the legend. There's my legend there. I can add data labels, so that's as close as I can get. So data labels on, boom. And I can put them on, oh, look, vertical. Now they can rotate them. Position, inside end, there we go. And then I can't do anything with the text. That's not possible at this point, but I can turn off the y-axis and the legend. We don't need that legend anymore. And so there we go. This is basically an equivalent chart built in Charticulator. All right, let's up the game here a little bit, and we're going to move up to a more difficult chart. This is kind of just the basics 101. Let's do something with adding additional ribbons between things. So let me see if I can pick another visual here. Let's not do the spiral one. Not very fun either. Not a lollipop chart. This one. All right, we're going to do something like this. Okay, so this is where we're going to incorporate the use of ribbons. And we're going to make a plot segment that has data points, and we're going to make another plot segment that has data points, and we're going to match up the information between two different data points. This is also something similar that we're doing over here, where I have basically a line chart. This is a bar chart, and that we're linking each data point to the same equivalent data point on a scatter chart. So you can actually take these little thin, wispy lines and make them match based on data elements. Okay, so to build these kind of charts, let's see here where we're going to go. But I had another one that was a really good example of this. Let me just double check my data points for this one. All right, let's copy this. Let's make a new page. Okay, so we're going to start off like we always do. We're going to build a table. Here is the representation of the data. We have an index column. So the index column is defining the grain of the data. And I was talking about this earlier. This is important to note. If I removed, let's just copy this table, Control-C, Control-V. Because I want to see every single data point here for males and females, I need an index column that defines uniqueness. So I have multiple records for the female column, and I have multiple items for the male gender column in that gender column there. And I need multiple data points to show. So if I get rid of the index column, Power BI will, actually, I have to do this and say it'll kind of automatically aggregate it. And inside the Charticulator app, this is basically all we would see. We would see female, male, other, and we would see these 2 data points automatically summed up for us. So this is really how Charticulator would view the data unless you have the index column. So this is something that's been a gotcha for many people who build this. If you want to see more than one record for dimensions, you'll need some sort of index or some sort of granularity that tells Charticulator what kind of grain of data you need to look at. Okay, so let's remove this table. And I'm going to just leave this table here. We'll copy paste it, Control C, Control V, and let's go build some more Charticulator. Transition this visual into the Charticulator visual. And let me just double check my comments here. Oh, someone's asking, will this video be recorded? So for those of you who are watching, yes, the video will be recorded. It'll also be on YouTube, and I think LinkedIn as well. So I think it'll be in both places. I'll thumbs up that little comment. All right, excellent. Back out to building visuals. Okay, now we're going to build some more visual here. So same thing, we have data, but we need to make sure it's all aligned here. So I'm going to move the gender column up to the index and gender. I'm going to move V1 and V2 up here as well. So now I have all the data in the data column section here on the left-hand side, right-hand side essentially. I'm going to click the ellipsis again, edit. We're back into the chart. We're going to create a chart. And now we're back into chart creation. If we want to look at the data, we can see it here. We can see what kind of data we have going on. So let's start just building like our quick and dirty bar chart. So what we'll do here is I'm going to just delete this plot segment. Let's erase that. We're going to start fresh from scratch. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a 2-dimensional plot segment. I'm going to make sure the lines are orange, and then I'm going to snap the 2-dimensional plot segment in here. This is going to be one of my bar charts. So first thing we're going to start with is we need a bar, and we want to stack it on the Y direction. So we're going to stack things horizontally. And the first thing we'll do is we're going to add a mark to this. So I'm going to add a mark on this page, and you'll see right away all the marks are there, and there's crazy amounts of stacks of them. So there's actually a lot of little lines in there. You can see them all stacking up. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to make the height of the bars something. So let's go add dimension or value 1 to this. So this is going to draw the bars in order here. So now we've got a different height for each bar. The next thing we're going to do is we want to color them. So we want to color them by gender. So now we're going to grab the gender column, and we're going to go down here to the fill and do it by gender. And we're going to have 2 colors, or maybe 3 colors. It looks like it's green and black. It looks like there's 2 different colors here. So the next thing we want to do is we want to, I believe, sort them. So let's see if I can sort these guys correctly. Let's see here. Let's go up here to the plot segment. Oh, you know what I might have done? I might need to make 2 different plot segments here, but we'll see what it does. Filter by categories, and we're going to filter by the gender category, and we're going to just clear all these. We're just going to do the female category first, and then we're going to order descending. So there's another order in here. Down here in the order, we're going to order by V1. Okay, so now we've built a chart that has a whole bunch of little lines. So each one of these lines represent one of the data types that we have in here. Okay, so now I've got a cool line chart kind of on the side. Now we need to make the wisps that come down to a scatter chart. So now what we're going to do is, let's change, I don't really like the color here, so this is bothering me. I think we picked the gender of female on this one, so what I'm going to do instead here, I'm going to go in here and pick colors, and yeah, female. So let's just do this one a little pink. We have some, so we got a good pink color in here somewhere. There's a purple. That'll work. Works for me. Okay. I like that better. I think that resonates more of what I'm thinking here. All right. And then now let's build a scatter chart below. So we need 2 dimensions for this one. So I'm going to zoom out to the full chart area. So now we need to build another glyph. So we're introducing the element of a second plot area. So I'm going to go click the glyph first because I need to make a new glyph. Next, I'm going to go grab a plot segment. And now I'm going to draw my scatter chart down below here. Okay, this is important. If you're doing this, we need to have a separate glyph. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a circle on each data point. So you can see there's a whole bunch of circles all the way across here. And we want to now color the circles or have the fill of these circles be by gender. So I'm going to do the fill by gender. So now we have this purple and green looking fill now. But we need an X and Y dimension for this. So if we went back and looked at our data, we have a variable 1 and variable 2. So we could plot these kind of together, right? So variable 1 may be my X-axis and variable 2 may be my Y-axis. So now I'm going to go to grab variable 1, put it on my X-axis. That will disperse them across the X-axis in a dimensions. And then I'll do the same thing for the Y-axis, grab that and drag it to the Y-axis of the scatter chart. And now I've got a scatter. So these are all the data points that are drawn across those two different dimensions. To me, this feels a little bit hard on my eye because we're using these purple and greens. So we might want to make them a bit more pastel. And this is another cool area we can do here. I can click the glyph, the symbol, and then we go down here to the opacity, and then I can make it like 0.5. So we can kind of wash them out. And this is a technique I use a lot when we're doing scatter plots. In order to show density on a chart, you need to have a scatter plot that has some layer of density removed from the data points. So this is kind of basic 101 visualization stuff. Like when I have multiple data points appear, I have another visual reference that these are spread out. But when the color gets darker, like in here, I can see density now. So this is another really cool aspect of using Charticulator is I have more control over doing density on top of particles that are laying over top of each other with an opacity-based visualization. So let me go 0.4 here as well. That looks okay. All right, so we've got some data there. So cool, we're getting there. And what we may want to also do is let's see what else can I finesse here. I don't really like these plot axes. So for the kicks and giggles here for demonstration purposes, I'm going to turn off the X and Y axis just because we're just kind of building things for fun here. So let's go back to the plot segment. I'm going to turn off the X axis so you can't see it, and then turn off the Y axis as well, because we're just going to build something pretty here as opposed to like really making actionable reports. All right, great. Now we need to be able to draw the lines between the two charts. So the next part here is we're going to go up to the links area, clicking on links, and I'm going to draw a line between plot segment 1 and plot segment 2. Assuming I do this correct, I'm going to create the links, and it draws these horrendous lines. So what this is doing is for every purple dot, where it falls on that dimension for the y-axis, the x-axis, it's basically drawing the height of the bar up here. So this is the height of that data point represented as a length, but it's representing the match to this data point down below. So essentially what this is drawing is, here's how far over that data point is, and there's where it aligns to. The next thing we can do is we can change this line. So it's basically a type of solid. I believe this is called Bezier. I think it's a French word. And then you can actually change the curviness of that line. So we can then increase the curviness to kind of wiggle around a little bit if we want. And because this is not super useful in this format, it's super dark, I'm going to change the opacity very, very light because we just want a subtle approach to this. So I'm going to go 0.3 on the opacity. No, I'm not. I'm going to go even more, 0.2. I want it very faint. So you can see the wisps of each of the lines are coming down and touching the data points. Okay. Next thing, we're going to repeat the same process here for the right-hand side, which will be the, we're going to use the male gender on the other side, and we're going to do the same wispiness to the other chart here on the right-hand side. So we're going to go back here to the glyph. I'm going to drop in a new glyph. We're going to go grab another plot segment, draw it up here in the upper left-hand corner to the center like this. We're going to do the same charting. So we're going to stack on the Y direction. And now we will add our bars again here. And this time we will add gender again to the, oops, I gotta make this a little bit smaller. So let's make the glyph smaller. I'm gonna add the gender to the color again. Again, we've got our mixed mash of colors of green and purples. So we want to filter this by. So we're gonna go back up to the plot segment 3. And we will now filter by gender categories, where the gender is now clear, just the males. And that looks good. And now we need to draw the height of all the bars. So for these bars, we will again use V1. I believe we used V1 on the prior one as well. So let's go back over here to the shape and glyph area, and we will add V1 to all the bars. And now we've drawn the bars. Now this one's interesting because we're coming from the left-hand side again. So I don't think we want that. We actually want to reverse the direction here. So I think I can do that on the plot segment, where I can draw it from the other side. So now I'm drawing from the other side of the visual. And again, we want to order these things as well. So we're going to click on the order button, and we're going to go order by V1. So now we have the other side of the graph there being made as well. So all that looks fine to me. And then the next thing we need to do is we need to add our wisps between the dots and the graphs and the bars. So then we'll go back up here to links again. And then I don't want to do plot segment 1, 2, and 3. I only want to do 2 and 3. So I will click 2 and control or shift click 1, 2, and 3, and we'll draw some more lines. So now we have lines being drawn there as well. And you'll notice here, these lines are coming out of the wrong spot. So this is going to be a little hard to do. You see that there's a little dot here? I need to move that dot to the end. So there, I'll do that again one more time. Very, very fine in here. There's a little dot because this is a square. The line is being drawn from this dot from the middle of the bar out to the data point. But I don't want that. I want this bar dot to come out of the end. So what I do is I click and drag the data point to the very end, and boom. Now I've got these data points coming out at the end. So same thing we're going to do. We're going to change this to type Bezier. And we're going to, again, add our little wispiness by, what did we take on the other one? Link 1 was a curviness around, let's call it 68. 68 there. And then we'll go over to the link number 2. We'll change that also to 68 as well. So we have the same level of curviness. And we also want to change the opacity of link number 2 down to, I think it was 0.1. That's maybe a bit much. Let's go 0.15. And I'll do the same thing on plot segment number 2. 0.15. Okay. Boom. So let's just make these margins a little bit narrower. 10. Oops. 10, 10, 10, 10. You can bring those all the way down. I mean, it really doesn't matter what you do here. You could actually make them all 0 if you wanted, because this doesn't have any data points on the edge of the graph. So technically, you could make these all right to the edge of the graph like this. So it doesn't really matter. Now that we've got our nice pretty graph, we can hit save. And then we can go back to the report. And there we go. Now we've got some crazy amount of custom visualization going on where we have data bars sorted by orders. And then each data bar is linking to a scatter plot below where we have a bunch of other data points. So just some really cool other graphical things that you can apply here. This is kind of really the upper echelon of the cool things that you can do. There's a lot of really basic things you can do that makes this also very useful as well. So I'm going to pause right there. I see a question that has come up. Okay. So question from Rosa is asking, in terms of performance, will these amazing charts slow my solution? Yes, 100% they will. So one of the things that the Microsoft team has done, kind of maybe a bit sneakily, or what have you, is the performance of the standard visuals will always be the best performance, no matter what. Those are built in a different way. The way the infrastructure is run on the back end, these will be the most performant visuals you can get, bar none. They will run faster than even custom visuals off of AppSource. The Microsoft team prioritizes these visuals over all other visuals rendering inside the web application. Any custom visuals will be slower. So the Charticulator custom visual is quite a heavy visual, and so it's going to slow down your report regardless. But I have a whole bunch of articles on PowerBI.tips talking about, it's called More Visuals, More Problems, Mo Visuals, Mo Problems. But I talk about basically the more visuals you add to a report, you will inherently have more problems with the performance. So if your report's going to be slow, you're going to have too many visuals. That's going to cause things to slow down. So the answer is yes, it will. How many data points you put on the chart will depend on how slow or the performance impact of those things. Overall, I've found pretty good performance with some of the Charticulator visuals where it hasn't been too much of an issue. Rosa, thank you very much for the question. That was a good question. I'm going to take a quick drink here. All right. Let's keep moving along. Let's do a little quick time check. Okay. I think it was Sean. Sean, I think we were at about a full hour-long session, or do we need to go a little bit extra? Because I haven't really done a whole lot of time for questions here. I've pretty much pushed us at a full hour. Maybe you want to come off.
We have time.
Oh, we have time. Okay.
Yeah.
How long do we go, Sean? Do we go an extra? I have like maybe I can do like one more, a bit more tame than this one, but I can do one more visual if you want.
Yeah, sounds great.
One more question here just popped in from LinkedIn. Continuing with the Rosa question, what would be the behavior as an embedded report on a web page? So the performance you'll see in Power BI.com will be the equivalent performance that you would see in Power BI embedded with this custom visual in it. So I've done a number of visuals for clients where I build these really enhanced, cool kind of custom visuals, and we embed them into Power BI.com as well as into an embedded visual on a website. So there's no really performance difference there between Power BI.com and embedded. It's all using the same underneath infrastructure as well. So there's really no issue there. So there won't be a performance degradation. But that being said, any custom visual you put into a report will have some lower level performance. It will slow things down slightly comparatively to the regular standard visuals that you get. I wouldn't recommend you put 50 of these on a page because it will probably be dog slow. I mean, 1 or 2 of these would probably be enough on your page. And if you're putting that many on a page, you probably need to design something else as well. So, okay, cool. Great questions, guys. All right, I don't see any more questions. I think we're good. Excellent. Let's move on. All right, so let's do one more example here. This is another one I found that's ooh, I don't want to touch this one. I want to do the bar chart, scatters, and whisker plot. I don't want to do the chord chart. I don't want to do the bullet chart. This one. Okay. So here's another cool chart. So this is I think this is called a box and whisker plot. I think this is what I think this is correct if I'm getting this correctly. So let's build this chart. So this chart has a line. So this is more like a statistical look at some of your data. So this is where we talk about a bit of statistics, and I'm going to go just briefly into it. Sean, if you don't mind, maybe go grab a box and whisker plot URL link and drop it in the chat window or something like that so people can kind of read up on it later on if they want. But this is really describing data about a distribution of data. So the idea here is interquartile ranges of data that's being plotted. So you have the full range of data being plotted here. That's your minimum at the end, your maximum at the other end, and then you have your first quartile, which is basically if you divide your data into fourths, I think. Someone who's in statistics can quote me if I'm wrong, is this first portion. This is quartile 1. Your second and third quartile would be the middle section here. So that's defining the middle grouping of your data, so where the bulk of your data lives. And then the last quartile is the one at the upper end. So this is kind of your interquartile ranges, and that's how this is working inside this this visual. So that's kind of the explanation of what's happening here. It gives you like the ability of seeing if your data is skewed or distributed in a weird way. Like for example, this normal plot here, you can see that there's a lower and an upper, but you can see there's a long tail on one end of this distribution on this normal data set, which is funny because this is actually names of Pokemon types. But this long end tail here is telling me that data is not distributed. If you're in the statistics realm, I think you're skewed right is what this would mean, or skewed left. I can't remember which direction, but you're skewed data in this standpoint. So some of your normal statistical operations won't work on this data when you see skews like this. Anyways, the statistics lesson aside, let's just get a table of data here. So this, you can see there is a type and a hit points value, so bug and hit points. And so all this is doing is presenting a row of data about categories and then some sort of value or HP value, hit point value that's on the other end of this table. So in true fashion, I'm going to just copy this table. I'm going to go over to a new page. I'm just going to drop the table on the page here. And then now that I see the data, I can Control-C, Control-V it again. We're going to just put it back on the page here. And now I will change it into the Charticulator visual, stretch it out here. And again, it automatically tries to move the hit points to the links area. I don't want that. Instead, I want to move that up to the data area. And now that we're good, let's get going. Let's go edit this. We're going to create a chart. All right, so first things first, we're going to need to start getting some data points on here. So when we start this, we have the initial plot segment. You can see right here. We're good to go. We're going to stack things on the Y direction because we want things to go horizontally. And now what we're going to do is we're going to add the types to the Y-axis. So this will tell us the different types of data, or these are the different Pokemon types on the chart here. I'm going to move this over a little bit so it's all on the same page. So these are the different types we have, and now we can start drawing things in the glyph. So first things first, I like to just kind of draw a bar on here so I can kind of see what's going on. You can see there is multiple bars here. So this is indicating to me that we're doing some level of it's not a single bar. This means we have multiple data points per type that we have here. So what we'll want to do here on this plot segment, we're going to group by type 1. So what this is doing now we're doing an intra-grouping data step here. So the data is coming in with multiple rows at the type 1 column. So this type 1, or the type of the animal that's there, it has, dark, or the dragon type, and their hit points. So the grouping now says, okay, we're going to do the aggregations, and we're going to aggregate by dragon. So that way we have a whole group of bars that are a single data point. And this is good now because we can use the interquartile ranges to define data points about this bar. So I just want to make that point there. Let's zoom this back out so we can see everything again. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go pop out the glyph, because we're going to do a lot of work on the glyph right now. I'm going to open this up, zoom this out. Okay, so we're going to take this bar, and I'm actually going to delete the bar. And instead now we're going to use the data axis. So a data axis is like a ruler, and wherever you start the data axis, this is the low value. So if let's just say, for example, you have numbers that range from 0 to 10. The 0 numbers are going to start, or the lower number, 0, would start where I start my cursor. The higher numbers will end on the other end of the data axis. So on the left-hand side here, this is where 0 would begin, and I'll draw it to the other end here, and I'll lock it back in with the guides on the other end. That's the upper end of that data bar. There's nothing on it. There's no data defining what's on this axis. It's just a data axis. So what we have to do is we have to apply some data to it. So what we're going to do is we're going to apply the hit points to the data axis. And you'll see right away, it puts a point on there that says, what is the average hit points for that item or that element? So average, great. That's good. That's kind of like the middle point, of what's going on here. So fine. But we want to add more data to this. So I'm clicking back on the data axis again. And so instead of just doing average, we're also going to add the hit points again a second time to the same data axis. Now you'll see it's doing average both times. So if I want to do the interquartile range, or quartile range 1, I believe it's Q1, or maybe lowercase q. Hold on, let me see if I get the formula right. Q1. There it is. Quartile 1. So that's your first interquartile range. This is a function that's just part of the ecosystem that is Charticulator. My friend Daniel Marsh Patrick and I talked about how to do this kind of stuff and be able to build box and whisker plot chart types. And this wasn't added, so he went out and modified the Charticulator code and said, we're going to add it. And so Microsoft liked the idea and picked it up. So this is how we do the quartile range. So that's the quartile 1. I believe you can do 1, 2, and 3 in here. So we're going to keep adding hit points here. That's the first one. We're going to now do the average, and then this one will be the quartile 2. Quartile 2. Sorry, 3. There's my interquartile range 3. And I think we also need the min and the max ranges, because this is going to define my box. So the quartile 1 and quartile 3 is like the ends of the box. And so now we also want to add some more data points here around the min and max values. So again, I'm going to add HP again. And then in this time, we're going to do the max value here at one end. So let's go max. Like that. And that puts the maximum value that it sees. And then we're going to do it again. Oops. Drag it over here to the chart again. And then this time will be the minimum value. So instead of being average, we're going to go minimum. There. Now something happened and it just did that weird. Auto adjusted the range there. Oh, don't want NA. What did I just do? I don't want to define a number there. Let me just erase. Let me try this again. I'm going to do it one more time. I think I screwed something up there. and it won't work correctly. Let me just drop that in. Let's go 1 min, quartile range 1, average, quartile range 3, and max. All right, I'm going to put them all in here at the same time. Let's just change these functions again. Change this to minimum. Change this to quartile 3. Or, sorry, quartile 1. Then the average is the midpoint. And this is going to be quartile 3 on the upper end. And then average will be max. There we go. Okay, this looks correct. So now we've got all these different data points. So what these are defining, see how these are little white circles? So when I was talking earlier about defining data points or what's snapped to these data points, these little data points are defining different elements about the glyph. So these are basically circles or dots on the line chart that I can snap my visuals to, or the glyphs to, or shapes that will define where those belong on this line chart. So now what we're going to do, let me zoom in here a little bit more, go a little bit bigger here, like this. All right. So now what we're going to do is we're going to add some more visual elements here. So what I want to do is I want to have some more variance on what's going on inside the lines of the chart. So I'm going to zoom in here to the one end, and I'm going to add a guide segment. We haven't done this yet. I'm going to add a guide across the y-axis. So I'm going to click guides. I'm going to, again, wait till my cursor gets orange here in the upper left-hand corner, and then I'm going to draw it till it goes down to the bottom. And you'll see here with the guides, it adds 2 more dotted elements, one here and one here. These additional dotted elements are something I can define. So I can define 2 or 3 or 6 segments. And what this is defining is defining additional heights of things that I want to do. So I'm going to leave that at 6 because now I've got a nice distribution of equal lengths here. And you'll see why here in just a moment. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to draw something on the shape here. So I'm going to draw a little line, and I'm going to go to where I'm at the minimum, and I'm going to draw a little line here on the end that goes between these 2 guides. So basically I'm drawing a little T here on the end. And I went from this guide in the middle here because I just want a little line. I don't want to go the full length. So I draw a little line there, and that's going to be the end of the bar. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I need to draw a bar that goes from, or a line between the minimum and the maximum, because I want to draw the whole line out between the whole thing. So I'm going to zoom out here. I'm going to get another line, and I'm going to try and zoom in here to get to this middle zoom there. I'm going to zoom back out, hopefully. Come on. It's not going to let me get there. Let's go over here. Drag it over a little farther. Okay, and I'm going to get up here to the max. There's my maximum value. Oops, missed it. Grab it and drag it to the max. So that's there. And then what I'm going to do now is draw another line at the end here. So same thing. I'm going to go to that guide in the middle, draw through the max. And I'm looking very intently on making sure those lines are orange, because that means I have definition to where that data point will be. So you can see everything's orange again. Draw it out. Boom, done. All right, so now we've got that drawn. And then the next part here is we need to draw the box in the middle. So I'm going to make my box fairly large. So I'm going to go to the marks area. I'm going to grab my box, and I'm going to draw it from here and go all the way to the end. So again, you can see I'm drawing the box for the average. I don't want the average. I'm going to go out here. I'm going to draw it all the way to the quartile, like that. So now I've been able to make the box part. I have the whiskers on either end, and now we can change the styling of this a little bit. So on this one, I'm going to change, I think we're going to change the color by type. So I'm going to grab the type here. We'll do that. And then I probably want to add probably a name or something in the middle here. Let's grab a text box, and let's just drop that on the average element. This may not go very well, but we'll see what happens. I'll center it here. And then here I have the text. And so we'll make the text color white because it's on a dark background. And we're going to make the type be the text. So that'll tell me this is a bug type. And with that, I think we've drawn out our plot segment. So I'm going to pin this back in and see what we get. And we are way off the page because my plot segment is a bit too short here. So in my plot segment, I'm going at 90, which is because of that one data chart. So I'm going to go back here to my plot segment, and I'm going to adjust the segments here to go a little bit farther beyond 90. I think I want the plot segment attributes. Why is my data? Oh, I probably need to bind it with this one. Nope, that's not what I wanted. I thought I had this right. Looking for where I need to adjust the y-axis. I forgot which way to do it. Maybe I need to do it lying on left. Middle? Nope, that's not adjusting it. So somehow I've got my data axis messed up. This data axis should be containing everything inside this axis. But we'll do something here. I think the highest number here is 260, so I'll just go all the way up to 260. There we go. So that's probably why that, probably when I changed it earlier, that's probably what happened. So the next thing I'm going to do is we've already got all of our data points here. I will turn off the data axis because I don't want to show that anymore. And now we have our different box and whisker plots all in this thing. And again, since I have the different labels already on the bars themselves, I don't need them on the y-axis either. So we can get rid of that additionally. So instead, I will ditch the y-axis on the chart. So we'll go to plot segment again, minimize these. Let's get rid of the bugs. We will turn that visibility off. And we will go back to the chart width here and go back to 20 again. Now, it's important to note here, we do need some sort of axis on this so we can see what's the data range. Like we can see the bar charts are here, but we don't have a data axis. So I'm actually going to turn on the data axis again, and we're going to stylize this a bit more. We're going to put this on the last value. And that's not what I was thinking. It was going to be last value. Last value. And then let's go back into the glyph area. I think I can move the data axis around to the bottom. So I'm going to go down here to the bottom of the glyph like that. All the way to the other end. Like that. Now it's funny that normal is at the bottom here. So maybe I can do a sort order on, maybe it's by type. There we go. Okay, that's what I wanted. I changed this setting here to align by type, and that's why it was thinking that normal was the end. And then it's on the wrong direction, so I got to flip the axis around. So I'll go back to the data axis, and then we will change the visible position to opposite, and then it flips it upside down, and there we go. Now we've got a chart with the line axis, and let's go back to the chart area. We need a little bit more depth on the bottom area there, so let's make the bottom, instead of 20, let's double it to like 60 or 40, a little bit more. Nah, too much. 40 was doubling was better, like that. All right, and with that, I want to do a little bit more here. Sorry, one more thing here. I'm getting bugged by this. It's silly. It's one of the character types. So under the shape here, I'm actually going to style this a little bit more. Let's go under the shape here. Let's add a trim around the shapes. So I have a stroke. I'm going to change the stroke of this to like a grayish color. Let's go a little bit darker on the gray, something like that to define the box a bit more. I don't like the colors on the shape fill, so let's see if we can get to something. I'm not going to mess with it now. And then let's soften the bars, the line of the bar, so it's a little bit harsh on my eye. So we'll zoom in here. I'm going to click these colors here. This one is too dark in my opinion, so let's go a little bit lighter on the color. Let's drop it out a little bit so the bar is not as stark. And you'll see there's a little bit of a glitch here going on. If I zoom in, you'll see at this data point, the gray bar goes behind the black bar, which is fine. However, if I go to the other end of this, zoom in over here, you can see the gray bar goes on top of the black bar. And this is because of the layering. So because I drew these things in a certain order, the different line orders that I made here is just putting the layers on top of each other. So I had to drop this one up one layer. So I took line 2 over here and moved it above line 1. Oops. So I went line 2, moved it up one layer, and that then drew the black line on top of it. And so additionally here, we probably want to have like a minimum and maximum. So let's go to the maximum value, and we'll make that a nice red color. And we'll go to the minimum value on the glyph. And we'll click the minimum, and we'll make this a nice bluish color. And so now we've got a red and a blue. And now you can spend the rest of your day screwing around with sizes of lines and making sure everything fits right, and just kind of really go into town on like the thickness of things. So you can make these thicker by making the pixel width 3, and make this a 3 as well. So make the bars in the middle too much, 2, and then line 1 we're going to make it a solid line of 3. That's looking better, a little bit better. I'm not thrilled on the colors between these. I wonder if I could adjust that. Hold on, let's see if I can fix that. Let's go to the shape. Let's click on the color palette here. Let's do, I don't want by hit points. I want it to be by average. I want to change it. How do I adjust the shape colors? I don't like these colors. Well, for kicks and giggles here, I'm just going to do it by shape for now because I want something. I want like a gradient of colors here that are a little bit funner, a little more fun to go with. Let's go with a, I don't like any of these. Let's just clicking around to find something I might like here a little better. Not my favorite, but I think it's a little bit better that way. We'll go with the purples. I like it, but I want more purple there. Whatever. Good enough. Here we go. Let's start it at 40, and let's end it at 100. Let's go back to 90. It was better. Too light. That's good enough. Well, there we go. More color, fun stuff. That seems to be okay for me right now. Go back to the plot segment here. The right would be just 20 as well. And there we go. So now we've built our box and whisker plot. We've got labels on it. We have the upper and lower end of the data bars, and then we have an axis to show everything. Now that we're done, we're going to hit the save button, and we'll go back to the report. And there we go. Fun little box and whisker plot on top of some Pokemon data. All right. Let me just, hey, Daniel. I see you in the chat window there. Daniel, you're really good. Make sure you add a row index to the data set like you did in the previous examples. Ensure that Power BI doesn't pre-aggregate any duplicate values. Thank you very much, Daniel. I appreciate it. Thanks for the feedback. Awesome. And with that, I think we're done. This visual here, I got to give mad credit to this. I built this one, but Daniel Marsh-Patrick, who's actually in the chat window on the LinkedIn stream, he was the gentleman who actually produced this one. That was his idea initially to build out the bar and whisker plot. So this is his design. And with that, I think we're done. If you want, let me just quickly bring up. So I do some other fancier builds. This is another visual that's built inside Charticulator as well. This is a chord chart. It has a black background. All the different visuals are here. So I do a full build on how to build this on my YouTube channel. You can go to get those there. And so I'm going to just quickly hop over to YouTube and just give you guys the link to that, hopefully. Let's go over here to this place. And then I'll just quickly show you that. So you can find me if you like these videos. I have a whole playlist about 11 or so videos, probably about 3 hours on the YouTube channel. So go to youtube.com/PowerBI is the YouTube channel. And then down here on the bottom section, you'll find all of my playlists in this list. And then the one you're going to be looking for is the Season 1 Charticulator. And this is where we have all these videos. I've basically built out all these different things. I explain everything in this session and a lot more. We talk about scaffolds, the glyphs, all the other details, and then we start building charts. So the global trade chart is the one with the circular thing that's really cool. We build bullet charts, box plots, and comet charts. So stay tuned. There's more episodes coming in the future. And as we figure out cool new visuals to build, we'll keep posting videos here. Be sure like and subscribe if you like the content, and we'll keep making more stuff. And with that, I think we're done with the stream, guys. Let me go back in here to the slide deck. Shift F5, hopefully. There we go. Let's go back up one. So thank you all very much. I will hang on the call here. I am going to cut the live stream. So let me stop that here real quick. I actually don't know how to do this. I've never done this before. So I think I just stop it in OBS.